Welcome to the second part of this live newscast. And as I had alluded earlier, we are talking about BBI. We had it in Mombasa, consultative meetings in Mombasa over the weekend. And of course, today, a section of Jubilee leaders pulling a first one and indeed saying that they will be holding their own BBI consultative forums. Well, they say it's a matter of complementing the ones that have already started. We are on meeting number 3. And of course, to help us delve into the matter, I'm joined by a very formidable tag team. Of course, on my immediate left is Counsel Steve Mogaka, a constitutional lawyer. Karibu sana, Counsel.
Thank you so much, and good evening, viewers.
And on my extreme left, Job Ndege, who is a leadership and governance expert. Karibu sana, Job.
Asante sana.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for honoring this.
Anytime.
First things first, are you surprised by the change of tact now that some of the Jubilee legislators now are saying we will be holding our rallies too?
Personally, I'm not. Yes. In fact, I was wondering why they were taking too long. One, this BBI is unstoppable.
Yes.
Yeah. If it is a thing that is generated out of the handshake between the Right Honorable and the President of the Republic of Kenya, it is public funded, it is gazetted, it is basically unstoppable. And therefore, the attempt by those who, I don't know whether to refer to them as Tangatanga, those skeptics who initially thought that this thing is going nowhere, is a stillborn, now suddenly realize that this thing is unstoppable. Yeah, and I commend them for choosing to join Mombasa because that was testing the waters. And having got the experience in Mombasa, I think it is well thought for them to start what they are calling a complementary, or rather their own.
Yes.
But whether that will happen,
yes,
time will tell.
Job, are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. Though what surprised that they're still prevaricating this late in the day. Because I'm not so sure either it's a complementary rally or it's a parallel rally.
Yes.
And one interesting thing about that group is that they don't seem to have a spokesman or a spokesperson. Yeah, they all shoot wherever they see the press. So you'll hear Kuria say this, Mukome say that, and then that team that was never at least try to have some order saying something. So yes, they have to do something because this train was moving, and that reggae beat was really beating.
Yes.
Yeah, and like Raila said in Mombasa, no one can stop reggae. Yes. So they have to do something, and that something will actually determine whether they really get some stake in this thing or not. So they have to be careful what exactly it is. They should actually stop talking from both sides of their mouths and just decide what exactly it is that they are going to do, and maybe they'll have a chance.
Counsel Mogaka, on Saturday we saw a mammoth crowd, and so has been characterized in the two that already had happened in Kisii and also in Kakamega. Did the Mombasa one, because it's the first one that some of these legislators attended, did it play a part in today's decision?
Oh yes, oh yes, because Mombasa, being a BBI, call it homestead, because with Joho as one of those initial architects of the BBI following quick from the handshake, it was clear that BBI Mombasa was being played at the home ground.
Yes.
And initial skeptics attending that rally were fearing snobbing, were fearing audience, and were fearing whether they will really have a stake in this particular program. I'm not surprised, therefore, that from their experience looking at the mammoth crowd and judging that perhaps they did not get sufficient or quality airtime, it is a way of saying we are going it alone. I will not be surprised that what comes out of the Nakuru meeting will not really a pro-BBI agenda, but clearly sideshows or a few steps towards wanting to create a position that is basically anti-BBI. Because as my colleague has already said, the initial skeptics are not sure whether they support BBI or BBI2 or they don't. They are not decided, or if they are decided, they are not saying it. And that is why when an attempt in Mumias was really a parallel rally, I mean, you know, trying to showcase that they also are proud crowd pullers. So basically, the move in Nakuru are the baby steps of wanting to create a nascent opposition or alternative to the BBI architects and drivers. And since they cannot fit in the original vehicle, they want to create, you know, a scooter somewhere saying, we are headed for this journey. Yes, we will not board, we are not boarding on yours, but we are headed somewhere, somehow, in the name of BBI.
Job, did it play a part? And also, is it going to water down the already BBI consultative forums that we've already had?
No, in fact, on the contrary, I think there will be a lot more of them, and they'll even be more well organized. What this other team is trying to do, and more so by the choice of Nakuru, is to try to also show might. You know, those rallies have been very big. Yeah, if you look at Kisii, look at Buhuku, and then you look at Mombasa, they've been extremely huge. Yes. So they had to choose some place which they can also marshal some numbers so that people will see, wow, they also have a big crowd. Now that place initially will have been in central Kenya, but the president is now tightening the grip, and almost all those governors, even those who used to be pro Tanga, if I may call them so, have actually chickened out. So they have some hope in Nakuru to show their might. And I think they're thinking that if they show some huge presence in a rally, then they may probably, one, either assure their supporters that they are also still in the game, or maybe try to cow the other side and say, come, let us talk. But both of those actions don't really help them. Yeah. I think the only advice I can give that other group, if they want to get something out of those BBI, is to just keep cool, toe the line, give their presentations in wherever forums these people are giving their presentations. Because the forums, the way the president and the prime minister have done it, such that there's always some consultative meeting before the rallies. And nothing stops all these MPs, if there are many as they say they are, to actually be going to where those leaders are, because those leaders will be MCs, MPs, governors, the rest. They give their views. And then when the rally comes the following day, then they are there and their views will have been taken in. But running a parallel show, they don't have the numbers. When the governors are in this thing, the president is in this thing, the prime is in this thing, the game is over.
And as Job has said, has talked about, of course, making sure that the agenda is BBI. Some of the legislators talked about the BBI, the first meeting and the second meeting, and also the third meeting. He's talked about there's a lot of politics being discussed, which is actually drifting from what these BBI meetings were all about. They also talked about they don't feel comfortable with actually talking about ODM and ODM leader being like the face of the BBI forums.
I sympathize with them because one thing you cannot take away from the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is BBI. Because it is BBI is born out of the handshake, and therefore the face of the handshake and BBI is the President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Right Honorable. That you cannot take away from them. And I know that call them Tanga, I better call them myself initial skeptics. Their concern is ownership. And it is like, they want to support BBI, but they don't want the ownership to be attributed to anybody. Yeah, and this is really the paradox, because the Right Honorable and the President are the two people who leading coalitions that sat down and created this. So to want to steal the show from the Right Honorable or the President of the Republic, I think is missing the point. And if that is what they intend to achieve through parallel, or call them complementary, call them whatever rallies, then they are missing the point. They had better support the President, who is the head of their coalition, or just say they are walking out and saying our position is that we are not for the BBI.
Job, how does that sit sit with you?
Just like you have said, they must make a choice.
Yes.
There is no middle ground. And then this is politics. Why the rallies have to take place is that it's a political process. You want people to engage. The president and the prime minister have been saying that this is a popular initiative. The popular initiative is the Wananchi. So whatever the leaders will talk about, whatever even the Wananchi talk about in a closed boardroom, for you to get this support so that people know that there's something going on, because after the end of the day, there'll be a referendum. You must go out and show that might, and sometimes that might of the people will even make some people who are having doubts whether this thing is really good for us or not change their mind. Remember, in the run-up to this process, the deputy president and his team were really out talking against the BBI. And they were actually, almost every weekend, they were in some church or in some other function. And in fact, they actually had a head start, compared to actually these other people.
Yes.
And in fact, it's now surprising that they're the ones crying loudest. And they had almost 2 years of tangering, if I may use that one, all over trying to talk about this thing and say this thing is very bad, it's for the leaders, it's for everybody.
Yes.
And then now, they are complaining.
And perhaps on the same, do you
Yes.
think there will emerge some political vehicles after the whole BBI thing in regards to these meetings?
Very possible, because already there is some form of understanding between the president and the former prime minister. So that's already something which is different, because they were not in the same formation. And then there's something going on with KANU, and then with Ford Kenya, and then with Chama cha Mashinani.
Yes.
So something is happening. And if the other side decides outrightly to be against it, then it will be this very big formation, having almost 5 or so parties, vis-a-vis the other side, having probably half of Jubilee.
Okay.
So some political formation will come out of it.
Yes. Counsel, you are a constitutional lawyer, and one of the things that really came out strongly during the Mombasa rally was the third-tier government. Kindly take us through briefly on that and what it would mean if at all we are to adopt that kind of system.
Thank you. Great question. What Kenyans must understand is that what is driving BBI, and even that is the reason behind its birth, are interests. There are various interests by various sections of the citizenry. And therefore, among the issues that is creating historical tensions and post-election skirmishes is the question of inclusivity. And this question, so long as we have a winner take it all as we have, it obviously consistently has shown that it generates despondency. And that is the reason why one of the recommendations in the BBI is that, do we relook at the governance structure? Do you ignore a presidential candidate who has garnered 48% of the votes of the Republic and just say whoever has got 52% takes it all? This is a question of inclusivity that this BBI seeks to address.
But just to cut you short, will it address the question of the wage bill? Because, of course, it will involve a lot of people in the government.
The wage bill, the wage follows the structure of government that we put. Once we are agreed on the structure of government, the wage bill is just added unto it. And as somebody indicated in a previous conversation, is that Kenyans want a good constitution. A good constitution must be funded. So Kenyans must be prepared, to finance the good constitution that we are looking at. And to answer you, therefore, on the regional government, regional governments are one of the recommendations given. And as I said, interests are what is driving this particular agenda. And I've had people trying to lambast outgoing governors who have served their 2 terms, that the regional governments are about them. But why not? Because as citizens of this country who have also served their 2 terms in gubernatorial positions, they are entitled to think about their post-gubernatorial, life. If BBI lends them the opportunity to say, let us also have regional government, those regional governments are going to be filled competitively. If a former governor vies and gets, I mean, so be it.
Okay.
So this is the inclusivity we are talking about. Let us not look at inclusivity, you know, selectively. And that is why Central Kenya was like, is President Uhuru looking for an extension of term? I mean, if the BBI restructures government and creates a position that he finds himself eligible, I mean, he's a citizen of this country.
Okay.
And these are the interests we are talking about that are driving the BBI.
Job, your views on that?
Yes, from a governance perspective, in fact, the current counties have some challenges, and those challenges may actually be sorted out if there's a bit of restructure. They themselves acknowledge, in fact, almost everybody acknowledges that the counties are too small for them to form viable economic blocks. And in fact, most of them have been trying to coalesce into some forms of regional blocks. Now, if we move that further and make those regional blocks something which is legal and constitutional, then that will be one way of ensuring that this thing works. Then secondly, when you talk about the wage bill, the BBI was even trying to prescribe some certain ratios. Currently, in the Finance Management Act, there is a ratio of 30 to 70 based on development and recurrent. BBI has actually inversed it. So 70 becomes development and 30 becomes recurrent and operational. So that can be a prescriptive way in which that can be sorted. But there are other clever ways of doing that. For instance, now in every small county, you'll find between 30 and 70 MCAs coalescing in some local assembly. That assembly can actually be moved from the local to the regional. Yeah, and that can even cut more costs than even what we have now. Assuming, for instance, all the counties in Nyanza, which are probably 6 or 7, decide that all their county assemblies are disbanded, they form one major county assembly, and then they'll be representing people from the counties to that regional assembly, but the counties still exist, then that may cut a lot of costs, and they make actual legislation become more meaningful and effective.
In terms of, actually, we are out of time, but in terms of timeline, when is the soonest that we can have a referendum in the country?
As soon as we do consensus and agree. And this is the reason why the BBI is being popularized. And once it is by popular initiative of the people, and we give our views, and we agree, and thank God, the Deputy President and his team says they are not opposing, you know, BBI. So in principle, as a country, we are in agreement. And therefore, the timelines for fast-tracking the entrenchment of this into the constitution is going to be very short. But without giving views, regional government, I don't think, in my view, mean that we are going to wind up any counties, because the moment you talk of winding up any counties, that's a live. That's a deal killer. That's a deal killer. So when the time comes to give recommendations, thinking of the people is that the existing counties they should not be touched, and therefore those who are looking at getting the consensus of the people had better know what people don't want to hear.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but 30 seconds each. Waititu tomorrow at the Senate.
Yeah, I think it will be a dark night for him. The clouds don't look good. The oracle doesn't seem like in his favor. But let's wait and see. I think this is part of our democracy and part of our democratization process. It's fair for him to be discussed. And if the senators will actually give their verdict. I only hope that the verdict that senators give will be a verdict which has come out of a fair process and a process that actually takes into consideration the Kiambu people's wishes.
30 seconds, please.
Yeah, for the Waititu story, we wish him luck, and we wish the Senate luck, and may they be fair. If they are not, we are waiting for them in the judiciary. Our guns are loaded.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, indeed, for that bright insight. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but my colleague is coming up next with the latest in business. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Council.